This video is about the development on how we view the meaning of life. We have all experienced that people have widely different views on life, and we might even get to the point where we think that there is no meaning of life. Because it's all individual, it's all subjective, so there cannot be a meaning of life. But we don't know for sure that there is no meaning of life. We cannot completely rule it out just because we don't know it. This video asserts that there might be some hope out there. There could be a plausible explanation for life. Why not? There are so many other things that we can explain. This video is about the development and how we view the meaning of life. As living beings, we have gone through different stages in how we perceive life, and I'll go into these. But today we are in a situation where we experience that people are perceiving life very differently. We might even get to a point where we think that the meaning of life is individual, it's ultimately a subjective thing that we cannot know about. There is no ultimate or absolute meaning of life. So we start with what we call the experience of life. We all have experienced what we call life. There are some fundamentals in how we understand life. These fundamentals has evolved over time. And our journey starts back in the jungle, where we find the people living in a very primitive culture. They believe in a meaning behind what they experience. That can be spiritual beings, and there's a meaning to what is going on. The world around them is alive, but it's just something that they have sort of an awareness of what is going on. But that's their fundamental belief. And that belief has evolved. And we come to the more barbaric religions. We see it in the Nordic countries. They live in a state where their main goal is to be killed on the battlefield in order to go to paradise. That's an ethic, that's a belief system, that's a basic thing in the way of living a life. That's a meaning of life in a way. But after the barbaric religions, we see new religion coming up, and we know them as humane religions. They are faith-based, so it's still something where people believe in it, but we see a completely different view on the world, a completely different meaning in a way, a completely different world picture. So here we, instead of being barbaric and kill each other, we have to start what we in the Christianity call neighborly love. So it has turned 180%. So we are going from being where our ideal is to killing each other to the opposite, where we have to love each other, respect each other, be friendly, but it's still faith-based. So the next thing we start seeing within the last, started a little bit in Greece 2,000 years ago, something like that. But within the last 400 or 500 years, we have seen science coming along. So what essentially has happened with science is that our intelligence has evolved quite a lot. So instead of the faith-based religions, we really need to know things now. We are getting in our schools all the time, we are being told that we have to know, we have to be able to explain. And that at some point also becomes relevant for our belief in the world, our understanding of the world in general. But in the first place, we don't really have any facts about it. I mean, when you believe in something, you don't have the facts. You just have the result or an assertion that something is this or that way. But when you have more intelligence, you need to understand. You need all the, if it's a math problem, it's not good enough to just get the result. You need all the in-betweens. How did you arrive at that conclusion? So what is happening in the beginning is that the only thing we really know about is the physical world. So that's where we see a science today. It has a lot to do with the physical world. We have been really good at knowing things about the physical world. We know how heavy what the weight of the earth is and so forth. And we can do a lot of great things. And also use them for bad things, I should say that. and I will come back to that. But that's the first thing, because we can actually experience that directly. We can measure the physical world, and we can start to get facts about the physical world. We can know about it. It's a science that arrives. But there are things that the physical science or the materialistic science cannot do. And one of the things is that it cannot go into the meaning of life. What is the idea behind things? You cannot measure them. At least that's the assertion here. So what you get is a lot of how things are working, but not why things are working. In a way, all this why thing, the basic meaning of things in your life, sort of get a secondary place in the world. So all the religious stuff slowly gets out of your consciousness. So what is happening is that because you need this fact-based things, and the only thing you can really see is the physical world, you become a materialistic person. So instead of believing in a spiritual world behind the physical world, and the faith-based religious as Christianity and being barbaric and all the stuff that I already talked about, you get into a state of view on the world where everything is physical. So the only thing you believe exists is the materialistic world. When you see it in that way, your life starts when you're born, and it ends when your physical body stops existing, right? That's your life. You have one life. It starts when you're born, and you're gone when you're gone at the end of your physical life. All your thinking, all you as a living being, is something that's a product of the physical world. So essentially, because the only thing we could experience, we started to believe that the only thing that actually exists is the materialistic world. So we start to believe in a single life. And that can go quite well as long as life is decent. But when life becomes unpleasant, how do we find the meaning? What's the idea behind it, basically? What is the fairness in life when you only have one life? We see children being born under very different circumstances, and today we can see what is happening all over the world, right? There are some people who are born in great rich families with a lot of opportunities, and they have talents even when they're born. And we see other who are born under some very horrific circumstances. They have to work really hard to achieve anything, right? And that might be okay if your life is okay. But what happens today when your life doesn't go well? If you lose something close to, you lose your job, or whatever your fundamental part of your life is. How do we find our meaning in that? That crisis that can appear when that happens. How do we go beyond that? And that's when the questions start to arrive. Is there some kind of explanation? Is there some kind of fairness in this? What is the meaning of things? What is the meaning of what is going on? Maybe there is another explanation, right? What if there is something that got lost in all this pursuit of materialistic knowledge and a materialistic point of view? Maybe even a knowledge that's kind of beyond the physical and the materialistic. We kind of saw it in all the other perceptions of life. I mean, there must be some kind of way of living in heaven or hell or whatever your view is on the world. So it's only the materialistic view on the world where our life kind of stops at the end, where we don't have a physical body anymore. So maybe there is some knowledge that could explain the unpleasantness part of our life, which is beyond the physical laws. And maybe they can give some meaning to what is going on. And this is where I would like to introduce the Danish author called Martinus. He claims that there is such knowledge, that we can actually know about what is behind what the meaning of the physical world is, what the meaning of the whole world is. And we can know it. Of course, the knowledge is a different kind of knowledge than the physical, but he says there is and can be a science about the meaning of life. He also says that there are some hurdles that we have to overcome. We need to have at least the idea that there could be something beyond the physical world. If you're just whatever is not physical, it doesn't exist, or it's just your waste of time, or it's whatever people say about that, this is probably not for you. You can just leave it. You don't mind. It's completely fine. This is not an attempt to push people to think in a specific way or anything. It's completely, if you find it interesting, that's great. If you don't, that's great. If we only have the physical knowledge, then we cannot have a fundamental meaning to life. That's the idea. I mean, what is the idea with this life that starts and ends? So we have to bring in the idea that we can exist beyond the physical world, that there is something beyond the physical world. One of the things, just to bring a little bit in here, is that the whole way we are thinking, if we take our thoughts, they're pretty much instantaneous. We can picture things, we can see things in our thoughts, and they come and they are exactly how we think them. It's not, the physical world is like we have to think about something we want to do, and then we have to do a lot of work to actually get it out in the material life. But our thoughts are really not that way. They just come along. So if we think about a beach, that's pretty easy. If we have been on a beach and know what that is, and we can put people on it who are walking around and having fun and whatever we want, and it just happens instantaneously. And that's the mental part or the spiritual part of the world. That is actually a pretty big part of our daily life. So we have the mental part of us, the mental side of us, which is different from the physical. Now, I haven't motivated it a lot here. I have a couple of videos about that. But there is this thing, so that's one part we have to know about in order to get into this world view. And what is probably even more fundamental is that behind our thoughts and behind our physical part is what we call the I. And it's not the I, but like in I do something. So there's a director, there's something behind all this that actually start or initiate the change to what is going on. And that is not just beyond the physical world, but it's also about the mental or spiritual world. So we get into this idea that there's something that is unmanifested, that is beyond all that is created, which is the thoughts and the physical world, and that's what steers us. That doesn't give a meaning of life in itself, but that's part of the solution to the meaning of life. The other part that we are probably interested in knowing about is, why is there all this suffering? And the very short answer is that in order to create consciousness, in order to create our life and keep it going, we need contrasts. So the reason why there are unpleasant things in the world is that we need the contrast to the pleasant. That's the meaning of it. That's the purpose of it. And Martinus states that because we need it, it's actually a good thing in a way. So the idea is that we have to experience these contrasts in order to renew our consciousness and keep on living. And therefore, the unpleasant part of our life actually has a meaning. I'm not talking about the specifics here, that's a much broader topic, but in general. So like we had the barbarians who their purpose of life was essentially to go out and be killed in battle, killed or be killed. That was the way to their paradise, right? We have the faith-based, where you have to believe basically to go to heaven. And if you couldn't believe, you would go to hell. So that's one way. That's a worldview, right? But here we have, and then we have the materialistic worldview, which is essentially you start living when you're born, and when you die, you're gone, basically. And then there is this view where we have lived before the current physical life and we'll live afterwards. And everything we experience is actually a result of what we've done before, and what we do now will show up in our future life. And right now we are in this big circular thing where we are in the part where we're experiencing unpleasant things. And the meaning of that is that we go through a phase in life where we get this knowledge about what is right and wrong, so we can actually live life at a higher level in higher spiritual worlds, is essentially what Martinus is saying. There's a lot more details to all this. This is just meant as a motivation. I'm planning to go into create more videos and put them out there about these different things. I'm still working my way around how to do all these things, shuffling a little bit around how I make the videos and so forth in order to get them out there. If you have any comments or things on how my videos are, then feel free to put them in the comments and like the video if you find it valuable, and please subscribe to the channel. It really helps it actually. Anyway, so far there's been a lot of talk here and there are some assertions. I haven't really brought you any arguments in the video. Martinus has a lot of arguments. He has written thousands of pages, and there's a lot of it which is actually arguments for what he's saying. He's really trying to take this worldview that he got from what he called intuition. I cannot go much more into that right now. So he actually kind of saw what the truth was in one way. So his job was to translate this into a way where we, with our knowledge, could actually get to understand it. Not just understand it actually, but to actually find it as what he called a scientific fact. So we would actually get arguments in order to get to the same conclusions as he's doing. He can only go to some common experiences that we have. So that's what he relates things to. And then we have to bring our own experiences and put them together with what he's writing. And then he says we can actually get to a point where it will become a fact to us as well. So what I'm trying to convey here is that there might be something to life that is more than just a materialistic view. I would assume if you're still hanging around in this video, you might have the idea that there's more to it than just a materialistic view. I will go over the points that Martinus is making about the meaning of life in my upcoming videos. And you can also read it, and I have linked to his work in the description, so you can find it there as well. So Martinus essentially states or asserts that he is putting out a scientific view on the meaning of life. And it's a pretty long discussion about what science is, and I might come back to that as well in future videos, but it's a little bit tricky and nerdy because you kind of have to take Martinus' world picture for granted, or have that as an assumption to bring up this discussion on whether it's scientific or not. You can't bring in the usual theory of science from, let's say, it's traditional or the model normal science, whatever you want to call it, but it has its own assumptions. I should say I've made a PhD myself where there was a lot of theory of science in it. So I'm not a person who takes all this stuff for granted actually myself. I find it plausible. I find some of it the things that Martinus is writing is right. And there's also areas where I just have to say, it could be, I don't know, I cannot see it, I cannot really, well, there are some arguments, I can follow them, and that's what makes it plausible for me. Going so far to say it's a fact, Martinus states that a lot of times, that things are facts, it's an absolute truth, and so forth, and there are some of it I can say, that's how it is, and there are other areas where I have to say, it's plausible. It could be. It really could be. But I don't know because I cannot see it. But that's a whole different discussion. I find it very intriguing to bring it up, and I'm trying to figure out what Martinus' own view on science was, and I hope I can put it out there at some point because I think he has some interesting views on that as well, besides just what the whole world is. Of course, he also have a view on what science is, and he claims that what he's doing is a science. So why does he claim that? He has so many arguments for a lot of other things. So what is his arguments for his work being a science? So that's what I'm trying to extract from what he's writing. And it's in there, but he hasn't written his work in a scientific way in the sense that if he writes a scientific work, you have an introduction and you have motivation, and then you explain what you want to do, and the most important thing in this discussion is how did you do it? What is your scientific methodology? And he hasn't written it like that, but he has a lot of comments or mentions what science is in different places, and I'm trying to put that puzzle together. But anyway, so but firstly, I think it's more important to just go into the arguments and explain what his view is, and I would like to do it here on the video because I think it might reach out to more people, and who knows, I'm fairly sure that there are some people out there who could use it. I have been very happy myself to find this view on the world, and of course the big thing is also to then understand what he's saying and figuring out whether it's because I'm trained scientifically, and that's also what I am as a person, just to say, is it actually correct? I'm a little bit critical, so there are some steps to take in order to actually find that out. Anyway, I hope you found this video useful in some way. I'll be back with more videos, and again, if you want to follow along, please leave a comment, like the video and subscribe and so forth. Follow this, share it with whoever you want. I'll try to put out some more videos about this, and who knows, it might make a difference. Thank you.